What's up, guys? Do you want to learn how to beat grandmasters without having to do anything? Without you just sit there, you win a pawn, and you win every game? Well, look no further than the world champion. 27 games. There are some highs, there are some lows, but most of these games he is beating the best players in the world. No opening preparation, just playing, Italian, just playing, just random stuff, and then just kind of doing nothing, and he beats all the top grandmasters in the world. So 27 games, you have a lot of data. The sample size is pretty large. You can see some themes here. So definitely check out this video. Make sure to like and subscribe. And here we go with round number 1. All right, so I'm gonna go over round 1. Magnus plays this guy Marco Materia, guessing some kid from France. So his first round opening choice is King's Indian, which is a very common opening choice at the high level because you can play a lot of different move orders, and the positions get pretty dynamic either way. Like both sides can definitely win. So he opts for this early e5, and I don't know the theory super heavy here, so I'm just gonna go ahead to the first big moment here, a5. So here, a lot of times in the King's Indian, we get these races where black pushes everything on the king side and white pushes on the queen side, and then whoever gets there first wins. A5 is a way to do it in a more controlled way, where take and you could the queen side is open, so you can actually start targeting the pawns over here too and fight back over here. A lot of times I will see when I'm playing, generally like when I play the King's Indian, I'm going for this all in, like push all the pawns. But oftentimes I've seen like the computer likes to just take back here, and this is another way to play. Probably a better way to play, if we're being honest. So he does start pushing over here. We trade off, and we see a very common maneuver here, bishop f8. This bishop is blocked. What was that? This bishop is blocked. We can remaneuver like this, and oh my gosh, you can anchor it on d6 to guard c7, and you can go bishop c5 check sometimes if the bishop moves off the diagonal to get a good attack. So a4. So a4 is actually kind of a mistake because now you give a target. What are we supposed to do? Yeah, f4 is crazy. So here and now, black is going to start tying down the white side, and here is a very easy transition. We're going to take, and now we have the two weaknesses. Black can anchor the bishop, and eventually he's going to break in through the king side or win one of these weak pawns on d5 or b5. So we're going to see some anchoring. He moves forward, and this is kind of the first big mistake. Now black has a way to get in. Remember, always at some point you have to invade the position. So here we go f4, and then we swing the queen in. The pawns start falling, as they usually do. Something funny, even here, like he's just moving forward. Eventually he's going to try to trade the queens or checkmate this king. And something funny here, he can actually just take this bishop, because he can't take here, because this is actually just mate. Queen g1, king h1, and then queen e1 check, and queen g1 is mate. But in classic Magnus Carlsen fashion, he goes queen g6 and says, I don't even want to mess around with it, let's trade the queens. We push the pawns, and one kind of nice, easy finish here is, instead of trying to hold this pawn or something, he just gives it up, because he knows that this endgame is just winning. b4, and it kind of looks like your king is sketchy, like, oh my god, if he goes pawn push here and this pawn's not here, it's mate. But there's no way for white to actually do anything about that, and that's why if you know that transition is there, you can just make your life easier and just easily go ahead and win this game. So here, this, what's the move here? h5, what a move, he's in Zug, he's zugged. So h5, let's say king here, king g3, if he just moves back and forth. I think the easiest way to do this, computer's losing its mind. Uh-oh. Computer lost its mind. Please stop, make him stop. Guys staying live. Yeah, they'll just make it 2. Generally, you want to make it 2, so that the guy doesn't explode. He's not doing it again. But h4, I think you can walk the king. If you want to walk the dog, you can go king here, all the way to c2, and then go get it. All right, we're gonna give him a timeout. I can walk the dog, or I can go here, take this, and push this pawn. But yeah, complete domination, a classic. Playing offbeat opening, playing the center of the queen side, win a pawn or 2 pawns, and then invade, opponent resigns. You know the drill. So on to round 2. Okay, guys, this is round 2 against this guy, Haug Havard. It's almost Harvard. It's a little bit off. My God. Okay, so against the Caro, he goes for this D3 line. Not a huge fan of. Once I learned that you can take it, and it's not even that good for white, I was like, I can't do this. Please. Let me just double check. Yeah, like this line, someone told me, I was like, oh my God, this is so good for white. And I was like, if it's good for white, then I'm down, but this is not good for white. This is nothing. This is not the way that I would play. It's the best way to put it. But okay, so you're not supposed to take it, I guess. Caro player meets Caro player. They both trade off. And this is actually the first cool or interesting moment. So c4. c4 is how white makes it kind of dynamic here. And I guess the idea here is I would try to go knight takes, and now I can try to get the bishop pair, or try to win a pawn. And if I get one or the other, at least I have something to play for. So this is where it gets a little bit interesting. And then just kind of still, I would say, very patient until you'll see a little bit later. This is the next transformation. So d4. And Magnus actually opts for these hanging pawns. So rook c1 and this structure. Which I think if you have the fianchetto and you have forever pressure on this diagonal, this is very 2 result for white. Like, these pawns are not going to be overrun, I guess. I don't. Weird way to think about it. Overpowered. I think overpowered. These pawns are not going to be overpowered by the rooks. And then you can go knight e5, and you have threats of pushing. And I think the b7 pawn is the real, like, that's the weakness here. So you're going to see that's kind of what it goes for. Eventually. And then just taking space. So if you see the last like 4 or 5 moves, they're just taking space and maneuvering. So we get the structure, and then develop the rooks, get ready to double, maneuver, see what's coming on. Just basically just see what's going on. The best way to describe it is like an ocean. It's never really trying to go anywhere. It's just waiting. And then okay, now we have a pass pawn. So after b6, I'm not sure why he played b6, but I guess he's scared of a5, a6. But basically, Magnus is making a pass c pawn. So here, alright, step 1 is complete. We have something to play against. Okay, so here, trade, move forward. And here, now we can eventually. So one nice thing is, black can say that he was up a pawn against Magnus Carlsen. He wins the d pawn, but the c pawn, unfortunately, is just too much. So here, and then we have 2 threats of pushing, and we have knight e8 check. And that's eventually what's going to break it. Knight e8 check, there's the pin, and he doesn't even take. He goes queen c5 check. If you take here, I have c7, and you just can't stop me from queening. Here's another thing I think, let me say, queen c7. Like, let's say, for example, you take here. The threat for black is to go knight f3 check. Oh my god, knight f3 check doesn't even work. Because after take, there's knight d7 check and you win. So yeah, the geometry, just say, the geometry does not work out. But that was kind of the threat there. So knight 8, knight e8, queen c5 check. I mean, pretty much you can do whatever you want. And everything is defended. And once again, we have offbeat opening, playing in the center or the queen side, win a pawn, or he didn't even win a pawn, but basically push the pawn, and that's enough to win this game. So once again, just a super effortless chess, no really risk or anything. So now we'll move on to round 3. Okay, so here we have round 3 against Daniel Dardha, who I think he's Romanian, pretty strong player. So Magnus goes for Sicilian. So that is generally what we've been seeing so far. A lot of Sicilian and a lot of con-Sicilian. So he goes knight c6, and here we get a... Okay, so is this closed? Bishop b5. So knight d4 is correct. a4, a6, bishop d3, and I think I would go g6 here. So he goes for e6. g6 I think is also one of the top moves. Yeah, so g6 is good too. So e6, and then he doesn't trade because he wants to keep the space. Okay, so let's keep going. So this game actually ends up pretty interesting. So knight e2 is a very sharp move. I think they're trying to go d4 or c3, d4. And he doesn't do either. I think he should have done, yeah, I think he should have gone for c3 or d4. Knight g3 was kind of asking for is the best way to put it. H5, always kind of a common idea if the knight's on G3. G6 always dominates this knight, and H5, H4, and H3 all come with tempo. Spoiler alert, that is exactly what happens. If he takes here, his king is like forever weak, and white doesn't really want to do that. Probably black's going to castle queenside eventually, and then this king is just forever cooked. So he goes for d4. If you go g3, this is also kind of annoying. E5, bishop g4, and you have all these holes. And like, yeah, all of a sudden, white's position has gotten kind of suspect here. Okay. And then here you see just a constant forward movement. Once the position is worse, he just starts rolling forward. Yeah, everything is tempo. Everything is literally forward movement. That's exactly how you're supposed to play. No backstep. Knight takes. Kind of a desperation move, I guess. If the knight moves, let's say knight a2, bishop e5 is killer. You can't guard this. So that is the threat here. So take, knight takes. Okay, and then classic Magnus. Let's not. I think that's actually the best thing to do too. But just transition into a 2-result endgame. Knight c6. Okay, king d7 looks better. But here, I think you're just up a pawn. 3-5, 3-4. And everything is anchored too. That's the best, I guess, the best part of it. Your bishop on e5, your king is safe. And you're going to see some rolling forward. And then this actually is a good position to think about, like who's winning and why. And the con for black is it is opposite colored bishops. The good thing is the king is just very easy and practical for black to play, and this bishop, it's not really contributing much. And you're gonna see how he kind of moves forward, reroutes the bishop, opens it up, and yeah, the crazy part is this is just winning. Some kind of this and push the pawns. And the bishop never can get around, because if he wins 2 pawns, if he wins the d5 pawn, then it's also going to be winning for black. So he ends up trading the rooks, and I think the whole time it's just the king position is the key. You win 2 pawns, and then like the classic 2 pawns is too much. So yeah, round 3 we have another classic Magnus position. Play offbeat. Well, I think white actually played offbeat. Black punished him. This one he actually kind of, well, it's funny. He attacked on the wing, but then he immediately went to just controlling the center after that. Controlled the center, then he won some material because of white's kind of worst position, and then he cashed it in by pushing the pawns. So yeah, follow the script, follow the formula, and it's that easy. Alright, so on to the next round. Alright, so this is round 4 against Javokhir Sindarov, and let me start this. Okay, restarting. Okay, so this is round 4 against Javokhir Sindarov. And Magnus starts with 1e4. So 1e4. Black is more than happy to do 1e5. And we get a classic Italian position. As you see, probably you're going to see a little bit later on, you saw a little bit in the wrap-in, it's e4, bishop c4, d3, a4. That's his, like, I'll just do this no matter what, and you do what you're going to do. So we get this Italian position, already a draw offer. White does go ahead and decline, takes the center, but nothing too crazy. So here, let me put on, oops, got the computer on the wrong guy. Okay, back to this. I guess I could just cut this out. Let end this one. Okay, so bishop takes h3, and now black can go, sorry, white can go knight to c4. There's no really a tactics because everything's going to get traded off, and he gets the bishop pair. So what makes this position very, I guess what defines this position is there are worse pawns for black, but we have opposite colored bishops. So what black should do if he wants is to try to trade off pieces, and to keep these bishops on the board. And that's exactly what he does. So what I think Sindarov does really good this game is if you're trying to hold a slightly worse position, or you're playing a really strong endgame player and you don't want to lose, you don't want to sit there and take it. You want to be very proactive about your position. So he's definitely trading off and forcing things off. Now white will get some activity. Rook e7, and here is where it is a bit scary. But what Sindarov does once again really well is he never just sits there. He forces things off. You're going to even see here. Um, he's going to actively push these pawns on the side. H5, H4, and same thing. Force them off so that it is easier to draw. And they do play it for a bit, but with just these pieces on the board, and as long as you stay active, like you see here, he's not just balling up in a corner and trying to survive. He's actually, like here, he's actually got some like mate threats. So of course it's gonna be pretty hard to mate Magnus this position. He go ahead and forces the trades, and then black gets a very nice calm draw after maybe a slightly rocky position where he has worse structure against Magnus. So yeah, this round very solid, but you see the stronger players against Magnus, they're going to be a lot more active than passive, and that's how they hold or potentially win. So let's go on to the next round. Alright, so this round, Magnus is playing Anand Pranav. This is like final boss Indian kid. Like, well, actually not final boss. This guy's only 2393. So he's like a pretty good Indian kid. At least that's what I think. And here we see Magnus's classic Sicilian killer. This Italian. He just goes base Italian against the Sicilian. And yeah, he goes Moscow, and life is good. So okay, let me get the computer on. So already here, I think slight advantage. Nothing crazy, of course. I'm gonna actually try this opening. Actually, yeah, +1. And gonna keep the bishop. You cannot take on b3 yet, because I will sneak in, take out f7. I'll be up a pawn. So okay, so why is take here bad? It's a good question. So e takes knight e5, and you can sack the rook because now this bishop on e7 is actually hanging. So already here, and this is a very common thing you're gonna see. Don't give up a lot of space to good players. If they get all the space, you're gonna end up having more places to make mistakes. You give up the space, a lot more mistakes. That's the way to think about it. Okay, so here, bishop c2, he's got a weakness, but it's not the end of the world. So here Magnus maneuvering, and here's another thing you're going to see a lot with Magnus, is he is completely fine getting weird pawn structure. He actually goes into it. Like Sveshnikov is another one, like, he likes breaking the rules when he can, I guess. Okay, so take, and we're going to hit the weakness, of course. You know, just going to put pressure, and I think soon we're going to see our first tactic of the tournament. So king f1, getting ready to run, and now we have a tactic. So take, and now knight f7 check, king g8, and I think it's just leads to force me. Keeps doing this. Actually, we'll just keep going. So queen g8 check, king f7, queen here. If he goes back this way, alright, my friend, just relax. So here, we're gonna go queen c8 check, or queen f5 check, even better. And now the rook will come in. Once the rook comes in, we get all the mates pretty fast. And that's kind of the way it ends too. King g6, rook here, king h8, king h5, and queen g4. If you guys remember, in the Rapid against David Paravian, he had like a very similar mate. Something completely random. No correlation or anything, but that's just like same kind of mating pattern we saw. So yeah, it's another classic Magnus game. Offbeat opening, gets a slight advantage, and then here actually he punishes his opponent for being too aggressive. So the counter punching, if Magnus is going to win by checkmate, it's going to be through some counter checkmate where his opponent will probably try to checkmate him first. Okay, so on to the next round. Alright, so here we have round number 6, and this is where Big Bortnyk shows who he is. He starts the opening Magnus style, he goes 1, a3. I mean, the cojones to go a3 against Magnus is kind of insane. And basically, he knows no opening matters. Let's just play some chess. a3 out f3, and you can always do this. It's kind of the funny way to think about it. Like, what are they going to do? Punish you? Go c5, d5? Like, a3 can always be kind of a useful move. So it's basically saying, like, I don't really care. You show me what you want to do. He knows Magnus is going to do nothing, too. And here, I don't know how much I agree with all this. But let's look from the black side. Okay, so here... Yeah, so black is doing fine, but of course, white is also chilling. So here, take, we're just forcing things off. So that was the mistake, huh? So queen takes d4 is the best way to continue. I think the idea is at some point you can try to push this pawn and open up this bishop, Whereas if you go pawn takes here, this bishop is just like stone for life. Like, okay, they're never gonna go c3, and this bishop is never gonna do anything. Okay, so we kind of play, we shuffle. And okay, so black needs to go g5 to keep some kind of advantage here. I don't know. Rook takes e6. Yeah, it's very committal. That's why I think he's just chilling with trade-off. And now here, I think he needs to do all this. Okay, so here, I'm gonna keep going f4. And okay, this is I think the big mistake because now this white can get in. So g4 is kind of hard to see. So what is the plan? g4, rook e1, queen d8, 95. I mean, let's say I go rook d1. f4 is, oh my god, f4 and rook h4, rook h5. That is the threat. That is so sneaky. I did not see that coming. Wow. So why can't I just do it now? What's wrong with f4? 95. Okay. So let's say rook queen d8, rook d1, f4, 95. Oh, the bishop is blocking the... So the queen is blocking the e5 square. Is insane. Okay, gotcha. And if the rook moves, then he can't go 95. Insane. So that's what he's supposed to do. But now he has to actually go to the back foot a little bit. Because now everything is anchored. This is the first time we're seeing someone else anchor and Magnus is left overexposed. The bishops are actually not as good here. And then we get this position. And still, okay, like, very draws position. But this is very reminiscent of his game against, I think, shoot. Was it David Paravian? The guy that he played just pushed the g-pawn and got, it's not Paravian. But it's very reminiscent of what he did to some other guy. Maybe it's Havard. But okay, so here. And then the good news here is that can easily, I guess not easily, because the timing is very important. If this king comes over here, this king comes over here. This king is over here, I have to go king e5 to stop king e4. So we see kind of the migration, and now the king has to come back over here. But as long as this king is matching this king and this breaks, then it is a draw here. And that's what we kind of see going forward. Okay, ironically, the only person to have a winning position against Magnus went 1a3. So what does that tell you? Openings are... Anyway, so very interesting game. Complicated middle game. First time we see Magnus overextend, and then this is what kind of happens if you overextend. Can get in trouble. So anyway, let's go on to the next round. Alright, so this is round 7 against Saleh, who's a really strong player. And honestly, this game is just perfect counterattacking. So he starts with Sicilian, and we get our classic Italian versus the Sicil. He's going to go for the c3 d4 break. That's the first. So now black stops it by going e5 c5. The idea of this is to stop this d4 break. And now what this opens up once you go e5 is this d5 square. So you're going to see this is a huge theme of this game. He's going to move this knight to occupy the square. Now, what do you do after you occupy the square? You're going to try to invade on the a file and target this b5 pawn. You like that. So this pawn right here. So you just watch as maneuvers, gets the other knight to d5, trades off some pieces. Alright, he has a d5 square, targeting the b5 pawn. He's already getting ready for the endgame. I think he's starting to go d4 here, but not really. Let's say this black just goes king h7. Yeah, I think black kind of panicked. I guess he could just walk the king like this and then go for some kind of break over here. But what Saleh went for is the a2 pawn. But this is too rushed. Wow, that's crazy. He played like me. So essentially now the b5 pawn is weak. He's gonna go get this b5 pawn. Go ahead a little bit, and then this, and then here he resigns. So this was like a really beautiful way to play against someone who is a aggressive, dynamic player. Like he let him bring the fight to him, and then just perfect flow counterpunching. Probably could have been a lot harder if black didn't do anything, but with black trying to do something, and with I guess the opponent that he's playing, this was like a really good approach and style. So that's round 7, like very good counter-attacking game. Now on to round 8. Alright, so this is round 8 against Jorden van Foreest. So these guys are, I think, pretty good friends. Pretty sure Jorden helped Magnus prep for his World Championship. So you would expect them to be a little bit, like, I guess, chiller on each other. But this is actually, it ends up being a very interesting game. So, first things first, Magnus breaks this rule. In general, IQP versus Fianchetto, I think, is really good for white. It's positionally just very easy to play against. You just hammer this pawn. But he goes into it, and then he actually gets a good position. So, I'm going to go forward a little bit, because this is where it gets really interesting. So here, black is better, and the reason why is really, really deep. There's a weakness in this position. The weakness is this a4 pawn, right here. So what black can do is go a5 to fix it, queen c8, and like knight b2, and try to get this pawn. The idea is of also knight e4. So that is the idea, but Magnus doesn't go for this. He goes for queen a5, and actually Jorden does a really good job of trading off his weakness. So his weakness in this position is the double C's. So he goes for the c4 plan, and now the double C's are gone. And here he actually gets a really good position. He had two bishops in an open position, and now it transitions to bishop and he's up a pawn. And then this is where it gets really interesting, and I wonder, I don't know, I wonder if they did this on purpose or what. But if you go rook c4 here, black is not going to win this pawn. I guess maybe this is annoying. Yeah, I guess it's probably because of this. Don't know, bishop b6. So yeah, so Jorden goes bishop c7, and now here is actually an easy draw, because you can force the trade, and then 3-on-3, and it's an easy draw. But if you wanted to torture, if it was roles reversed, I wonder if Magnus would have gone rook c4, because you got the outside pass pawn and a bishop against the knight. That's like a really, really winnable endgame if you cannot lose your outside pass pawn. So, wonder if there was some friendly, you know, let's not hurt each other over here. But on to round 9. Okay, guys, here we have round 8 or round 9. We have a heavyweight matchup. We have Magnus versus Arjun. So Arjun had already drawn Magnus in the rapid. I think that's the order it went to. So he was one of the few who can actually like not lose to Magnus. So here, and this is high level chess because the opening starts out as Sicilian, but after some interesting pawn moves, we actually get a French. Bishop b5, d4, and it turns into an advanced French with a6 and h3 inserted. Now this should be good for black, because a6 is going to be a more useful move than h3. h3 is never really useful, whereas a6 you're going to have a lot of b5 and bishop b5 ideas. And foreshadowing, that's actually going to be what happens. And here, so the idea is, like, white cannot castle, and the computer is going to go for, like, knight a3 c4, I think. I think that's the idea that it wants, or something like that. So here we go for a4, and then Arjun is just pressuring the center, and here it starts getting a little sketchy. So, queen takes b2. Okay, so did he have to do this? I guess he did, because so this would be a pretty cool idea, right? Mate, king d2, queen e3. So is there a threat on d4? I think so. I guess what does white do? What if I just go rook b1? Knight e7, and now I can go to bishop e3. So here would be the patient way to play it. It's just very tense because white is just stuck in the center, and you know they're gonna go f6 and start opening it up, and like, how do you get out of there? So I think Magnus went to alleviate the pain. This is actually the first game I'm looking from the non-Magnus side too. Maybe it's the Indian in me. So he goes for the pawn, or so Arjun takes the pawn, and now Magnus goes for king d2, and here we get very, very sketchy. But Magnus does a really good job of consolidating. So you can see he just develops his pieces, moves forward. There's always pro trades, you know. Magnus is gonna be pro trades, and then Arjun decides to try to blow it up. And the idea of this is the d5 square, and opening up the position is what black is going for. Now here I can always post here. I have the open C file, and that's why he opened up the position. If not, let's say he goes like knight d8. One, you're going backwards in a good position. It's kind of breaking a rule. And okay, this knight is going to come to d4, and it's going to be very strong there. Now, if d4 and knight takes d4, the trades are going to be good because it opens up the position. Maybe like rook d8 here. Yeah, rook d8 is fine, queen c4 is fine. And all the endgame outs are good for black too because they have the protected outside pass pawn. Okay, so the classic king walk. They always just walk their king. I've been on the A side of a lot of attacks, and time and time again you see them just walk their king, and sometimes there's nothing you can do. But the big reason he's trading is he has a lot of good endgame outs, even though that he had a good attack before. The outside pass pawn and these pawns are all weak, and the knights can easily maneuver on these squares. So practicality-wise, this is still very good progress for black. So he actually goes to win the b5 pawn, and it actually does get a little bit sketchy, I will say. So somewhere here, and I actually watched the live feed of this, and somewhere around here Magnus like flags or something. Yeah, so I think here he flagged. And he flagged, and okay, so I'll show you the counterplay that Magnus played, and it was actually very, very effective. So g6, always like an idea, use h4, h5 just to open up the position. If you open up this and the king starts getting checked, a lot of things can start falling off. And queen and knight can do a lot of checkmating patterns too. So h4, h5 is one. And then another opening up move, just because, like I said, the queen and knight can do a lot of checkmating patterns. For example, if he goes like king f8, white is already better now because I pick up all these pawns, and then there's a lot of problems with this. So he was doing a really good job getting counterplay, and at this moment he could have gone queen takes a5. He stops this check, queen c6 check. I think I just go king h2, and then this is hanging, and then we have a lot of draws. So kind of a sad place to flag because you had done all the hard work and you had equalized the position. And that's happened to me before too, or some of I think my opponents too. Like, you do all the hard work, you get there, and then you make like either a big blunder or you flag or something. That's definitely something I've seen. But anyway, so the first loss in a very, very long time. Let's get on to the next round. All right, so this is round 10 against Grischuk. This is a grinder versus grinder, and you're gonna see this is a very interesting game. So Magnus plays the perk. He basically just, you know what, I'll play whatever. And Grischuk does this setup, which is the most basic setup I've ever seen, but also is just really good. Like, this is when someone trying to do nothing meets someone trying to do nothing, but he's doing something for the first time, for a change. But anyway, we get this position, and actually the best transition here is to go take, take, and then e5. And then apparently white's doing really well with bishop e4. And, yeah, not queen takes d3. I wonder what he does. Like, let's say rook a7. Maybe. Okay, so a4 and attack the queen side. So that is kind of I guess the big quote-unquote problem with this position. That white can attack the queen side very fast, and that's how you punish this. I didn't know that. So, still, Grischuk gets a pretty good position. Because once again, Magnus is trying to do something. Uncharacteristically, Magnus is trying to do something. And then we're gonna see, alright, he attacks the queen side. And then here, like, Grischuk actually just has a fantastic position because he's gonna just win a pawn. Knight d5. And okay, so here we have another mistake because Magnus tries too hard to trade the queens. So here he needs to go queen takes d5. And then here this actually makes... Oh, they're trading everything, huh? Take. 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 And you have two bishops. He does hold the pawn, though, is the annoying part. But I guess with this, you can blockade all these guys. Oh, just opposite color bishops, that's why I'm tripping. So maybe he's still trying to play for a win here. Because yeah, opposite color bishops, it's going to be like really, really hard for white to win. Black's going to easily blockade everything. Okay, so I guess, man, I wonder if Grishuk's doing that on purpose. He's weaponizing his drawouts in a very grindy position. But here, so yeah, Grischuk is literally just off a pawn. 3-6, 3-5. Alright, so then we keep moving forward. And we get this position, and Grischuk, he's doing it. And he misses the greatest opportunity anyone can have. He could have put Magnus in the gulag. And when I say the gulag, this is what I mean. He could have gone bishop b8, or bishop f4. Okay, he has to move bishop d5, and he could have gone bishop b8. If he had done this, like, these positions are, like, honestly, they're just so much fun. Because the rook is stuck here forever. The rook can never get out. It is trapped in the gulag. If you want to go rook b1, and if he ever goes like king c8, for example, and he tries to sack the rook for here, you can just go like rook b1. So basically, it's king and rook versus these guys, and then at some point you can bring the bishop back. And the bishop actually does something from b8 because it covers squares on this diagonal. Like, he can't go e5 a lot because you would just take it. So this is like a huge, huge opportunity. Grischuk definitely missed that on this. He goes for a different type of gulag, but this one, the rooks are kind of just like canceling each other out. And here, fortunately, Magnus does a good job of blockading. And once again, kind of an active blockade. You're going to push pawns, you're going to keep the tension, and then you're going to wait. And then here, they kind of just peter out to a drop. But yeah, Grischuk had really good chances here. If he had gone for the bishop gulag, like, that's an opportunity of a lifetime against Magnus Carlsen. But yeah, it seems like the guys who kind of like been there, done that, they're not as like, I'm trying to knock this guy out. If that makes sense. Alright, so this is round 11 against Volodar Murzin. And this is a very interesting game. It's a very Magnus game. So after a loss and a rough game, how do we see Magnus kind of respond? So first things, he goes back to Old Faithful, his Italian versus Sicilian. It works so well. And he gets like everything he wants, no sweat, you know, he's just maneuvering, you're waiting. And then he gets a good structure transition. Like, very easy transition for Magnus to do. He just has two weaknesses. And the guy has bishops, but it's very easy for white to blockade these squares. Okay, so rook a8, what's going on? Knight d4 is the key. And basically, we're going to trade off some pieces, and I'm going to be able to keep on hammering these two pawns. So here, black goes for this. We take the other bishop. Alright, so first things first, we got rid of the bishop pair. So we got the weakness. We're getting rid of the bishop pair. And then we're going to start trading down to get... Okay, so fix the weakness too. Now they're stuck here. This is like isolating the arm. This is like high-level jiu-jitsu. It's basically what this is. Alright, so now we have the fix, and now the knight can outmaneuver for sure. And I think he actually misses like a very direct win. That was very strange. He could have just gone rook a5 and won the pawn. Instead, he kind of... Maybe he thought he was trapping the rook or something, but he walks the king. And I guess this wins too, but this is where it gets crazy, really crazy. Here, 2600 plays bishop c6. Magnus goes 97 check and forks the king bishop. Now, probably he still wins this, for sure. Like it is like plus 4. But basically, homie said, yo, Jesus, take the wheel, like, I'm done. I'm not gonna sit here and find out what's going on. You can actually trade in here. So he has to go like bishop e8, knight takes pawn, king e7, and he was like, I don't want to see what happens next. This is where he turned off the movie and he gave the bishop. But yeah, definitely had some chances earlier on. I would not have rushed into all the trades with Magnus after he fixes the weakness. Like, here, a very, very critical moment, I think. Can you hold on and keep the bishop pair? But yeah, so Magnus, easy transition for him. Like, after a tough kind of two game stretch, you got very, very like smooth, easy Magnus type chess, and that's what you want after I guess being rocked. Alright, so now on to the next round. Alright guys, we got round number 12. We got Fabi versus Magnus, another heavyweight matchup. Magnus is once again playing the perk. Very interesting choice against the really good guys. I mean, he's definitely trying to avoid theory, but after his game with Grischuk, you would think he would be a little bit more tentative, especially with Fabi being a very similar style to Grischuk, I would think. So this is actually, I think, the computer way to refute, I think, the perk. But the problem here is, at some point, if you do nothing, and this is actually very uncharacteristic of Fabi, to go d5 so early. Right now you have space. d5 is too early. You need to finish developing, and probably move like, okay, bishop f1, get this bishop out, and then go d5. Because once Fabi went d5, Magnus could counter with b5, and this is everything that a perk player dreams of. To go from, okay, I don't have space, to, alright, now the pawns are fixed, my pieces have clarity, and I can now, like, form a plan that makes sense. Now, he missed this idea of a5, and then, I think, just taking space. And then, yeah, Fabi actually immediately kind of punishes him, and we get an interesting moment over here. So here, knight c4, I think, was a little bit rushed. You want to go for f5. But after this position, so first things first, why cannot white not take this pawn? And it's a very deep idea. So rook takes, bishop takes. Black can go bishop a5. And now here, I have pressure. I should win my material back. Oh my god, and this traps bishop. That's deep. That's why after bishop a5, I will get my material back. And even this like doesn't feel like, for example, wow, f5 is wild. But let's say for example I take in here. Like, why is this so good? Is my question. I think you're just gonna start pushing everything. You can't do anything. This formation right here is like solid as a rock. Spawn is always gonna be protected. His knight is always gonna be protected. The bishop can easily maneuver, and I mean opposite color bishops, but -2. So that was the idea there. If he took the pawn, so now what white should have done is go rook e-a1, and now you stop bishop a5, and you actually threaten rook a7. For example, if they go rook c7 here, you can just take and just trade off everything. Now, if rook b8, what is the response? It's a good question. Because you can't go b2, probably rook a2, or just take it because you hit this bishop. And I think, yeah, you domino effect every single piece back here. So after this bishop f5, how do you defend? Is it now a good question? Rook a8. I wonder if that's true. Okay, they can't take here, and then I think you can start amassing all the trades is the idea, and we made it. 91. You're gonna have to defend a little bit, like defend all these pawns. You can't take here because rook a8 again. So yeah, very very deep this move rook a1. Patient, and then you can start taking everything. Okay, so we keep going forward. We get this position, and so here Magnus. The one mistake I would say that Magnus kind of makes is he will trade too eagerly in a good position. So here bishop f6, keep the bishops, keep the pressure. That's what the comp wants to do, and this is all we're down for. I mean, it's really complicated. You have to hold everything back here, but if you do, you have 2 bishops and you're up a pawn, and life is good. But Magnus kind of rushes into the trades, and I will say this is a very annoying position to play because you know you're better, you know you have to just navigate. And then here, in just absolute time pressure, he plays bishop d3. Yeah, kind of, once again, the sad part is like just like the Arjun game, he flagged after he had clarified, and he could just make one more trade. I think he kind of just like hallucinated. But I will say this is like all of my blitz games. I'm winning. I'm low on time, and then boom, it gets you. But this is actually how I lost to Fabi too. I was winning. I got low on time, and I flagged in a good position. So I can relate to the way Magnus felt in this game. But yeah, played a very good second half of the game. Once again, outplayed him, got better, and then just some time issues. So let's get on to the next one. Okay, so here we have round number 13, almost halfway there. 27 games, 13 down. He's playing Teimour Radjabov, who's a very strong player. Now I'm very curious here why he didn't go e4. Was he targeting King's Indian? I know Radjabov does play the King's Indian, but he didn't even play King's Indian here. And then he goes for Jabava London. Jabava London in a very, I would say, ghetto way. Ghetto as in, I'm going to keep my king on f2 and just chill. And I would say this is a good way to play against these like more traditionally solid players. I think that's what Radjabov is. And also just kind of flowy. This is a very Magnus position, just like kind of like water once again. So he's just moving, and then basically he once he finds a weakness, once he smells some kind of like, ooh, I think I can do something over here. The coordination of black got a little weird, because of course he's scared to castle kingside because of g5. He's scared to castle queenside because of c-file. So he's kind of also waiting. And after knight b6, we can kind of start targeting that. So here, and this is actually what kind of kills Radjabov in this game, is the c-file. The c-file and the king always being stuck. So queen c6, rook c1, and now there's like serious threats. Like if I move this knight, you're gonna die on c8. So knight c4, he just moves the queen, and now we have once again more serious threats. Now I can go b3, and then I'm gonna win something on the c-file. And if eventually this kind of just catches up to him, can he have just gone to e4? I think too much. e4 really works, huh? No, I actually like what Magnus did. It's just very easy. So what should have Radjabov done? Okay, so queen a8, and then you have knight b6. Once again, it does look very strange, and it looks like it shouldn't work. And it's still probably, I'm sure better for white. Because you still can't castle kingside, but g5, I would say he kind of panics under the pressure, and now everything kind of collapses. I wonder if he thought he had queen d6 check here. I guess you don't even have time, huh? Queen d6 check, king g2, and then this is just busted because you just can't get enough to support c8. It's a problem. Yeah, so after this, it is just Magnus time. We're going to trade off the queens. We're going to control, and we even have a nice little checkmate at the end too. Here, and then yeah, it's over. So once again, the bounce back games for Magnus always go really, really well. And I guess it is because generally if he loses with black, so then he gets white the next one. Interesting choice to go Javokhir London. I think I wonder if that's a theme. After a loss, he changes up the opening. Though his e4 was working so well, maybe he was worried about some e5 then. He wanted to make it a more like dynamic game instead of like a Petrov or something. Anyway, on to round 14. Okay, so here we have round number 14 against this really strong Grandmaster, Martirosyan. I guess Haik Martirosyan. Martirosyan's really, really good at Blitz. And he played in this Blitz tournament, and he won the tournament with like 4 rounds to spare or something. And there's a bunch of Grandmasters, and this guy is just like, he's up here, and the next is like 4 points below. So definitely a Blitz phenom. Now here, we have Magnus in a very existential crisis. He keeps getting bad positions or getting bad results with g6, but he's getting good positions. He's having chances to win, or he has easy draws everywhere. So he's sticking to the opening. Martirosyan plays very solid, and eventually we basically get a King's Indian, where we're going to have a queenside pawn storm versus a kingside pawn storm. And so, once again, we have Magnus in a position where he has to do something. This is not like an effortless position. He has to kind of prove it, but he's doing a great job. He has a great position. I've never known this is the best way to push. This is actually really good to know, and you're supposed to go knight takes. I've always been confused which is the right way to do it, and now I know. This is why you analyze games. Okay, so now here, knight h4, and now black is really getting in there. So he's distracting the queen from this side. So take. Now what is the win? Knight takes f3. He could have just done it. That's crazy. He didn't do it. Queen h4. So bishop takes g4. Queen takes. Ooh, sorry. Bishop takes. And f3 is just killer here. Sorry, well, f3 for black is killer, but this is also killer. So let me see this variation. Queen g3, and you have rook f6 at the end. I'm assuming. Yeah, homie always starts freaking out. Let's get him to number 2. And rook f6, right? Yeah, rook f6 is crushing. Okay, so let me go back. So he's just toast after queen h4. Knight d1. This is why these positions are always kind of annoying, because you have to find the actual breakthrough. You know it's there, but you also know there's so many wrong ways to do it. You do it the wrong way, you just lose. So it's kind of just high pressure. Rook take. Oh my gosh. Oh my god. Okay, let me see this. What is the crushing move here? Bishop h3? Wow. And you can sack the rook because you have queen g5 mate. So this is where Magnus, if there's any weakness, it's I'm sure in a slow game he could calculate this all out. But in a blitz game, this is not his natural state. It's also just hard. It's hard to find the mate in 15. Because okay, so he kind of goes to Magnus form and he starts playing on the queenside. He loves this rook f7 bishop f8 maneuver. It's kind of a classic. And now the problem here is white is not going to get checkmated. He's worse, but he's not going to get checkmated. Queen g5 is what it wants to do. Let's just say, for example, I go queen a8. Just h4, h3, and take. And basically, you're solid here, is the idea. So let's say I take on c7 then. No, then there's bishop b5 check. So let's say like knight b5. Yeah, you're just going to say, you're punting these pawns, and this is enough. So that's how Magnus could have actually, I think, knocked him out. Because when he went for this, and he has his h-pawn, it's like, it's good in everything, but it's very complicated. And now actually here, we get this very complicated position. And now we get another... You know, we're just like moving around. Martirosyan, this is his specialty. He's gonna know not how to lose. He's a blitz phenom. And yeah, they keep moving, and it's kind of a sad ending again. I think Magnus flags in this position. So I do have similar qualities to the world champion. That's good to know. But yeah, so he played a honestly beautiful game. Once again, Bortnyk is not the problem. He got a great King's Indian attack, had him on death's door, and he just had to find the breakthrough. And in blitz, I think it is kind of hard to do. Or you just go, I don't know. It is hard to do, but it's also kind of easy and fun to do if you know. So that's why we just analyze games, and like the G4 break was really key, and then the just Queen H4 was the killer. So that is round 14, on to round 15. Alright guys, here we have round 15. Magnus is playing Rudik, Makarian. So once again, he just lost the game. How does he respond? He bounces back by playing the Javokhir London again. So that seems like his... And then he transitions to French because of the move order that Black played. And I think French is a position and Javokhir London where he can control the pace really well. You saw in the last game it went very attacking. You're going to see him go back to Magnus pace. And be very control style. So here he finds a weakness. He's going to hammer the weakness, of course. Now Black could have gone e5. That was the way to have it. I mean, scary move. Knight takes d5. What? D takes e5. Queen takes... Queen e2. Yeah, I mean, scary move to play. I mean, once again, you got to do it if you want to beat the world champion. But here, Magnus wins a pawn. He's officially up a pawn, and now watch him just take this guy's soul. So you're going to just see trade after trade, forward after forward. Force the trades. He always forces the trades efficiently, too. Like, what I mean by that is after bishop e4, he's not going to just take on e4. He goes f3 and lets you take and improve his pieces. Because now his knight can hop to these squares easier. And let's say, for example, you decided to take the bishop. Here, I would go pawn takes. Okay, so if take here, I have bishop check and I win a piece. And now I have two bishops, and it is an open position. So bishop takes, rook takes, and you've got some problems over here with these guys. Bishop takes. And I am up a pawn. Yeah, I'm still up a pawn with pressure on everything. So this is how you win no sweat style. So trade, you know, okay, defend for a sec. Okay, now I'm going to dominate this knight with the pawns here. On the pawn at f3, this knight is absolutely dominated, so it can't do anything. Now I'm going to trade some more, trade off this, and then this is torture. It's just absolute torture with no sweat. This is actually a very deep move, this knight d7 check, because after knight e5, he has to defend this pawn, so so actually g5 is better. G5 is better. He misses g5. So g5 check, you have to defend this pawn. If king g7, okay, then I can just go win this pawn. So you have to go king f5 to stay active. But then I can go knight c6, and knight e7 check will win one of these two pawns. And once you lose two pawns, it's over. And that's what we're going to see here. So here, this, take another pawn, and then he starts to push in eventually. He's not even in a rush to push the pawn, just the crazy part. They do the little, the whoop-de-whoop, the merry-go-round, the pitchy woo-woo, and then there we go. He finally starts pushing the pawn, and we have Magnus chess once again. So if you see the games that he wins, they're always this formula. Games that he loses or draws or has some more struggle, it's generally a very different type of game. So anyway, on to the next one. Alright guys, here we have Xiangzhi versus Magnus Carlsen. This is round 16. And I always wonder, because I know I think knocked out Magnus in the World Cup 3-4 years ago, if he's going to try extra hard against him. He does play a different opening, so he kind of goes with what he knows. And he's a huge expert on this, Magnus. Like he plays a structure all the time. These Dutch, Queen's Indian kind of BOGO structures. And here, this is like the first big, I would say, transition. He goes for this knight versus bishop position, and then he kind of like locks it up. I guess lock it up, I don't know, because he doesn't go g5. So he basically attacks this, trades off, and he likes this structure in the endgame. At least I think I'm gonna say, at least in terms of blitz, I think in a slow game, you're not gonna like win this. It's gonna be really hard to win this. Like I think white can find all the right moves, but with blitz and both of them like relatively lower on time, I think this transition actually makes a lot of sense. Now you can't go b5 because I'm gonna go knight b6, d5, and then I'm gonna basically isolate this pawn and capture it. So you have to take, and now here we get kind of a torture position. Yeah, like you want to think about nightmares. This is a nightmare. Playing this against Magnus. Have fun. So okay, so he fixes the pawns. He closes everything because it's knight versus bishop. He starts having a slight. Okay, this is when he starts making inroads. Knight d2. You're going to see the e3 pawn and the c4 pawn. These are the weaknesses. Now, how does he actually win this? It's still like a very good question. And the idea here, I remember this, is knight d2 wins because if he goes back, knight f1 check will fork these two pawns and he wins one. And then he can always come back with knight g4. So it was kind of a geometric thing. What was he supposed to do before the computer explodes? King g2. And now knight d2. There's no time to go to here. So yeah, I have to be... Oh, I got it. You got to be able to meet knight d2 with king f2. But the problem is he moves this bishop. So now knight d2, you have to go bishop d5, and then you can't go king f2 because you lose the c pawn. So just kind of a blunder from the white side. With perfect play, I think the position was a draw. But now, okay, all the pawns fall, black rolls, and it's just very, very practical and easier for black to play this position. So yeah, if you're like at 14 or 1500 and you get these positions in actual chess, you will beat your opponent every time. That's the kind of the equivalent I would say here. Anyway, so now on to round 17. All right, boys, round 17. We got Magnus versus Ihor Samunenkov. So Magnus has rebounded with a good win with black against Boo. So now he's playing down. He's playing like, I think this is the lowest rated player he's played the last two tournaments. So he goes with e4, and he goes with his classic Caro. And this guy, I wonder if he's like, dude, I'm going to draw Magnus, and he's like, let me trade queens. I don't know if that's the right thing to do. Just make it easier, but you're going into Magnus's wheelhouse. If you want, I mean, it's tough. It's a tough place to be. If you want to win against Magnus, then you have to keep pieces on the board. But then Magnus has more pieces to beat you with. So, and here's the thing that you see Magnus do a lot. He will just start pushing pawns on the side. It's kind of just like ask you some questions. Be like, are you ready for, can you handle pawns coming down at you? It's kind of the way to think about it. So anyway, they play, they're moving, they're grooving. So here, g5. I think g5 is a mistake. So what he should have done in this point is, if you do want to like you know make the game easier, trade pawns. If you take on d3, I'm gonna take back and I'm gonna move my piece forward. We didn't help. Now your knight actually is worse. But you can trade pawns in this time with f5, and this is what I would have done. Because you kind of want to open up the position, because black's king is in the open. And also you want to trade pawns, because it'll make it easier to draw Magnus. So that's what I would have done practically if I was playing him here. So after h4, I already kind of think we know what's going to happen here. He got an h-file. He's got something to play against. So here, just g4. All right, it's fixed. Once it's fixed, it's gonna be a long day at work. So he does get a pawn, but then he's got to navigate this a little bit better. Because here, I mean, g5 is a really big threat. I guess rook g8, but then, I mean, yeah, it's still a complicated position. What does he do? Maybe just like rook h7 just to attack the weakness. King d6. Now I maybe go rook here. Yeah, rook a4 with rook d4, and then he's got threats. And like once again, we get an imbalance in pawns and a way in, and that's all that he needs. Okay, so here. And then you're gonna see the passed pawn, the passed pawn killer. All he needs is a passed pawn. He even gives up this, and it's just too much. It's just too much back here. Rook b3 is nasty. Get an extra tempo, and then it's one of those races, and he's just too fast. I think he goes king d7. Okay, they keep playing. So here. And then which one does he catch? Because he gets to catch it with tempo because you have to take. So you can't go c3. Yeah, c3 I have time to take. If these were one more advanced, then you'd have a chance. But it's just too slow. Oh, and his actually made it even nicer. You get to walk the dog. King c6, kind of a nice way. If he goes king a5, Alright, computer. We see. We're good. We're good. We're good, buddy. Don't worry. If he goes king a5, you go king c5. Like this. This is walk the dog. And if he goes king a7, then you just take here. And then you actually just get a faster mate too as a bonus. Yeah, so another bounce back game. Another, yeah, I don't know if you want to just trade queens against Magnus. That's a tough place to be. Probably he's going to find a way. And one kind of cool thing is Magnus is, when he's trading into the endgames, he's down to go into a single piece endgame. Or like just rooks or something. He's not in a rush to like, okay, it's an endgame, but I got to keep like 3 minor pieces. Like one-on-one is fine for him. So anyway, on to the next one. Alright, so here we have round 18. We got MVL, the man with 3 names, against Magnus Carlsen. And Magnus decides to go for a Sicilian, and Con Sicilian is the one he goes for. Then Maxime transitions to Bowser attack, and then we transition back into just a Con Sicilian. So a couple transitions here to start it off, but at the end of it, and here, like, kind of the easiest way to play this structure is just get a bishop. You get a bishop, and then you have the right to do whatever you want. So already here, he gets the bishop, and, I mean, Magnus is just chilling. Once again, he takes it in the most efficient way. Give me the free tempo, then I'll take it, and then I'm going to open up the position. So here, just principally correct. Everything is down. Now here, a5, you could go bishop e7, which is kind of what the computer wants to do. But a5 is also kind of sneaky because you threaten bishop a6 to hit this. So a5, they start the trades, and here, like, Magnus is just 2 bishops. I think MVL has a pawn, but the pressure is great. Like, this is just a very, very 2-result position, I would say, from the black side. So here, you know, a little bit of maneuvering, take some space. I guess he could have. No, but this is just the easy way to play. So take, and then here, you could take on h1 and try to play this imbalance, but here, of course, Magnus just goes queen e4. He's not even down a pawn anymore, so he has 2 bishops and an endgame. This is going to be a pretty tough place to be. Instant pressure, or I should probably say max pressure. He's just going to get everything hitting all this stuff. And then we're just going. And here, maneuver it, and I guess MVL just is slow on time and just can't take anymore. And then kind of the position just collapses. But yeah, 2 bishops against 2 knights in an open position. That's going to be a tough place to be. So a more ambitious opening this time, but then basically Magnus finds one weakness or one thing to play on, and then he just goes full in that direction. Get the bishop pair, open up the position, go to the endgame, win the pawns, and then just cruise. Alright, so now on to round 19. Okay, guys. Round number 19. Magnus against Abdusattorov. So here he goes for e4, and then very interesting. Against e6, he doesn't go for bishop c4. His Italian is only against this d6, I think. Okay, that makes sense. Because after e6, bishop c4, I mean, d5 is just a free move. But against d6, bishop c4, now it's going to be harder to play d5 because you already played d6. Okay, so anyway, so he goes for Alapin, another classic Magnus idea. I should probably start playing like this. I'm going to try playing like this and see what happens. But yeah, once again, just, you know, we're making moves, nothing crazy. We're going to start moving over to the king side. I would have probably on queen e2 or something. That's kind of what I like a little bit better. But okay, so we keep going. He opens up. And one thing that Abdusattorov does really well in this position is he's pretty active, I would say. Like, he's not just sitting there. Okay, so we trade. And I wonder why Magnus goes bishop b4. I guess he wanted the structure, and you can't take on b4 because they take on d7. And then if he can get b5 in, he can play against this a7 pawn. The bishop takes, pawn takes, queen f7. And then here, actually, this is very, I would say, easy for white to play. And what made this position, I think, playable for Abdusattorov is he went h5, h4, h3, and got counterplay that way. Because you can't go queen takes because I get f2. And because of that, I have enough counterplay over here where I can actually just force the draw. The Magnus goes for the pawn, I go queen c8, and then you take here, but then I have perpetual. Now, one thing I will say is it does feel like Magnus tries a little less hard against some people. Like, there's some people who wants to take their soul, and he's going to take their soul. There's other people where he's like, ah, whatever, a draw is fine. That definitely kind of felt like that in this game, but Abdusattorov also did a really good job of being active when playing back. So now we're on to round number 20. Alright guys, here we got round number 20. We got Fabi versus Magnus. So Magnus did lose to Fabi by flagging earlier in the tournament. So you would think he wants some form of revenge. So they go Con Sicilian, and he goes for this e6 d5. We've seen a lot of e6 d5 in the last two tournaments. Very just solid structure, nothing to worry about. Now here he goes for this b5 idea. This b5 idea only works if the knight's on d7, or only really works if the knight's on d7. So here, Fabi could actually just take it. He could take it and he's +1. But, I mean, I'd be scared to take a pawn against Magnus too. Like, if Magnus is sacking a pawn, you'd be like, what's going on? Because he's not really what he does. But he took advantage of this. And Fabi goes knight c3, knight c7, and then he takes this way. And then here, Magnus gets a very easy position to play. I don't know if he had to... Yeah, he could have just won the pawn. I think he wanted like a Benko Gambit type structure. But here, like, white is actually just fine. Like, he's got pressure, but he's up a pawn. Now, what Fabi needs to do here is he needs to actively, I think, get these pieces over here. So he needs to go rook a2, rook a1. Actually, I have it in a different variation. So rook here, and here, I think rook b2. This is kind of what he needs to do. Defend this pawn, move all the pieces over, and then he can start moving rook b2, rook b1, and trading off all these guys. Because now he saves the pawn. If you save the pawn, then you can kind of go for kind of the next step. But he goes for this kingside counterplay, which is an interesting idea. But now Magnus can be more comfortable, I think, on this side. And the kingside counterplay, it's kind of more of a fantasy. But, I mean, he goes for it. He goes for the sacrifice. And then Magnus is just keeping control. There's a really cool variation here. So he moves everything back over to the king side to keep it safe. And here, the best move is to go f5. And the idea here is you open up the position, which is generally not what you want to do if you're being attacked. But it also helps your defense. Now all your pieces are over by your king. There's a really insane variation here. e5, take, queen h6. And here you have bishop to e8. Bishop e8, and if okay, rook takes, if queen takes, I threaten this. The rook on a7 is guarding the h7 square, and if queen, okay, can't go queen g6 check, and just these two magical bishops defend everything. I actually had a position like this once, where they just cover every square. So that is possible. Okay, so here we do this, and Fabi actually has a draw because of this perpetual. So that's actually how it peters out. But Magnus did have winning chances. But also Fabi has chances too. Fabi, just patience. It's very interesting. Fabi went for the attacking with like the all-in attack, which is a little bit uncharacteristic, I would say. But it was enough to hold this position. All right, so on to the next round. Okay, guys, here we have round 21, which I think is the beginning of a match between these two. Like the semifinal match, Magnus versus Fabi. So anyway, so for the second game of their match, he goes for double fianchetto against a London setup. So just super flexible, super like, I'm just gonna do whatever, you know, we'll figure it out. And eventually he actually has a chance to have a really good position. He could have gone e5 here and had a very nice space advantage, and then gone like knight f3, knight d2, knight e2, and just go for g4 f5. But instead, he goes for g4, a little bit more suspect. Apparently, queen d4 was winning here, which is kind of nuts. Knight f3, c5. His knight, I guess the center is kind of collapsing with the bishop on h7. So he doesn't go for that. So here we have knight e. Whoa. So they could have gone knight c takes e4 to open up. And here, actually, once again, white is doing very well. His bishop on b4, I do agree, is kind of silly. That's, I think, a big part of it. So they keep going. Knight c4, knight takes, take, trade, queen f3. Once again, you don't want to take, because I think then the c2 pawn becomes a problem. So a very common thing I'm seeing with the pawn pushes, there's a lot of leave detention, and we'll figure it out over here. And here now, at least it feels like white's getting some counterplay. f5, bishop a1, and then okay, so Fabi feels like an attack is coming, so he trades off. Magnus gets his pawn back, and then we're just going to trade off, and we get this Magnus is up in exchange position. So here you can't take on e6 because I have queen takes f8 at the back. So knight here, knight f5. He doesn't want to take here because, I mean, queen c3 is not a move. I think I can take, rook takes, and go e takes. Yeah, and now everything is fixed at least. I have a nice 3-on-2. Your king in the light squares. A lot of light squares are weak around here. Bishop versus knight, it clarifies, and I can try to attack you. I can try to win the endgame. There's a lot of outs for white here, and I think that's why he did not go for this. He's actually exchanged. Now here, once again, Magnus could have kept it. It is definitely more of a trying position, playing with the queens on the board, because you got a lot. It's just a weird position, I would say. So practically, I do kind of agree with this. But it's hard to win this position because he can trade off a pawn and then he can never really move these pieces. So here it actually ends up with Bobby kind of having the A side of this, but I would say still overall a pretty easy draw, and you can just trade off, and white is doing super well here. So that's round 21, or the second game of their tiebreak. On to the next one. Alright guys, here we have round 22, game number 3. Against of Fabi versus Magnus. So here we elect for e4, e5. We get a classical nothing, because Fabi goes for d3. Trying to go for a Vienna. I think, to make it a little offbeat. This knight e4 idea is very, very common. And this a5 idea is very common too. Just kind of keeping the breaks. Now something that Magnus does that generally I never see is he goes f5. Basically saying, I want the xqp. This ugly pawn on e5, but I get all the space. I guess the other question is, what else do you do? So that's why f5, at least it does something. Now he has this weakness on d3 that he's gonna hammer, so that's one thing. And then the classic push the a pawn, make things spicy over here just in case. Now foreshadowing, keep that in mind. And then okay, we have a new weakness, this f3 pawn. So knight g6 was to induce the the g3 move, and now make the f3 pawn target. So maneuver, trade. Now this pawn is not free because of this pin. And I can always go bishop f3. This is why. Now there was better. Apparently I can just go knight f7. Knight f7. And let's say you take it. Okay, I can't take it. So let's say f4. I guess there's mate. There's knight takes, queen takes, and queen h3. This killer. Oh my god. Queen h3, rook e4. Yeah, this would be great. And then what else do you do? I guess d4, knight takes, queen h3, and then I have bishop takes f3 no matter what. So he could have actually been a bit more punishing, but he went for this 2-result endgame. Classic Magnus. Bring the king in, and like I said, that's gonna be your way in. He never played a3. So now he has his way in, and that's really all it was. And then we hammer, and even this rook and pawn endgame, it feels like it's draw-ish. But the problem here is that this rook is gonna come take these pawns on this side of the board, and there's nothing you can do. He marches the king. The activity is definitely has a huge advantage in activity, and then we just roll the c pawn. And I think as a bonus, you don't really let him take g5. So here, and then, alright, now our king is out, and we have an easy win. So, he finally strikes blood after drawing Fabi, I think, 3 or 4 times in a row. It was a long, drawn-out endgame where he finally breaks him. Alright, so on to the next game. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, for round 23, and the last game of their match. So I think basically Fabi needs a win here, because it's a draw, loss. If he wins, then he can keep the match going. So he goes d6, probably hoping for a knight orf, and Magnus hits him with the classic Italian versus Sicilian. Just the absolute killer of all hopes and dreams. So here, a4, gotta keep the bishop. I think after this you have to go a4, yeah. So, okay, quick question. If I go, so knight a5, I'll go bishop b5 check. Okay, so this is all what he does. Maneuver, and then here e5, take the space. And these positions actually get very nicely attacking. I'm going to try this on stream, I swear to God. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to try this opening. And then here, he's going to rook, maybe just beautiful chess is the best way to put it. Swing everything over, no rush, knight g5, you already got h4 in, and then boom, goes the dynamite, knight takes f7. Everything explodes, Um, Bishop takes. This is okay too. I think this is the best. I'm gonna go with Magnus's way. Take on f7, and the reason this works at the end is if you take here, I take on e7, and I'm up a pawn. Up a pawn, and my pieces are much better, much more active. Once again, theme alert. We see this again and again. But he has to go bishop f6, bishop e6, and then here you can just take everything, simplify, and at the end of all this, I think white is just up a piece. It's kind of a sad place to be. You need a win, so he has to keep playing on. But like, what hopes are there? Yeah. So after that, everything goes, and Magnus moves on to the final against Nodirbek. So last but not least, the last 4 games of this epic long video / run. Okay, guys, this is round 24, I think, and the first round of the match between Nodirbek and Magnus. Magnus is white first. So he goes for d4, c4. So not even Javokhir London. He's going real chess. QGA is the way that Nodirbek plays. And very solid. It almost feels like Nodirbek's playing himself. Or Magnus is playing himself. That's what the games of Nodirbek actually kind of turn into. Okay, so castle. So we're just developing. And basically, these guys trade it all off. And Magnus actually gets like a slight advantage because of knight f5. I think that was a mistake. e4 is there too. But alright, so he has better structure. So rook d1, knight f6, and here queen takes e6. Well, it helps the structure. I think queen e5 was probably better, and they're both pretty good. But if you look at so I guess this is the bigger mistake. And basically, his willingness to trade kind of gave up his like slight pulley out in the position. That's why I think queen e5 is better, because you can just do what you're doing, but just kind of wait on it. Wow, a4. Yeah, and just take your time, because you want to play against his f5 pawn. Okay, so he trades off everything. But now this endgame is actually not what you would think. Normally it's okay, knight versus bishop, we love it, you can play this forever. But here, Magnus starts going the wrong way. Once again, Nodirbek does a great job of forcing things off. This makes it easier to draw, and also makes it just good because you're pressing your opponent. So Magnus goes for the h-pawn. And he really commits to it, which is really dangerous. I've actually lost games like this, like, all the time. And this is actually how he got in trouble. So e5, so he marches, but it's too slow. And I can always sack the rook. So, and that's actually, how do you even push this is a problem too. Let's say knight f4. Oh, rook d2 is mate. Oh my god. That's crazy. I didn't even see that's mate. You have to go e4, and then you lose the rook. Wow. So yeah, Magnus kind of went all the way in one direction, trying too hard to win, and that's how he actually ended up losing this game. So he's down for the first time in the final match. Can he bounce back? Okay, guys. So here we have, I think, round 25. So this is actually a really, really big game because Nodirbek won the first one, and if he wins this one, I think the match is. Oh no, it's not over because he has 2 chances, but you just need to draw in the last 2, and a draw here would be fantastic too. So Magnus goes with the perk. When he needs a win, he just has to keep pieces on the board, and then he just kind of plays just normal position, and it's very interesting when he needs a win. He doesn't do anything crazy. He just kind of chills out. Okay, so Bortnyk takes this pawn, but he's basically like, this is a draw. I can force everything off. It's a draw. Like, this is a draw, right? It's a draw. The only thing is black does have the outside pawn. So it's a little bit easier for him to kind of attack here. So he starts much to the king. Nothing crazy, we get the king in. This is still all pretty normal. It's okay. You don't want to let him get the pass pawn. If he gets the king here and pushes this, it's very dangerous. It's king d2, so alright, we're still continuing to trade. Personally, I think he should have taken the h-pawn, because it's a lot easier to attack the f-pawn and attack this pawn, because the knight has to be here. But to attack the h-pawn and to attack the b-pawn is like impossible. These are farther away. So I would have taken the h-pawn, because this also gives you the chance. Let's say, for example, he takes like this. Maybe you can make an outside pass pawn over here, and then you can try to at least give some counterplay. So yeah, definitely would have taken the outside pawn. That way it's easier to defend. And we get this position, just still really drawish. The question here is, how does white attack this h6 pawn to try to trade things off? He goes for this idea of knight g7 and knight f. I'm going to tell you why. Because after like this, knight d6 will stop you from going knight f7 and attacking this pawn. Same thing goes for if I go knight g7, you're trying to go knight f5, so I will go knight check and knight d6 to stop you. The difference is the knight is on g7. I hope this makes sense. And the knight is on d8 here. So the knight on d8 is, though he stops you, this knight is closer to this pawn. And that's the big key. You can go knight c6 here. So now if he tries to go king c3, you can just start moving the king. He can't take here, because you can take here. At some point, you can just sack the knight for this pawn. If your king is here, you can sack the knight for this pawn, and you can just take these two and trade off everything. So that's kind of the big idea of I think why Nodirbek went wrong in this endgame. He let his pieces, just like Magnus in the first game, let his pieces go the wrong way and get too far away. Same thing kind of happened for Nodirbek. So if we keep going forward, the real crucial mistake is he went king e2. So king e2 loses connection with the c2 pawn. So now this pawn gets attacked with tempo. If instead he goes king c1 or king d1, now you have time to do something because your pawn's not under attack. You can go attack. And now here's the difference. And this is what happens in the game. King e2, king c3, I attack this pawn. And if you defend it, I have knight here with check and I get this pawn. Everything happens too fast because that extra tempo. So this, and then Magnus finds the fortress to stop. It is kind of crazy. White cannot do anything. He can't do anything. Knight g5 is the killer. What a way to finish it off. Can't take it because you block your pawn and I queen first. And that is why this wins. So, clutch game for Magnus. I think Nodirbek kind of... this is more he beat himself. Like, he had the draw. He thought he could do anything. And just a slight inaccuracy and Magnus finds a way to win. Alright, so now on to the next one. Okay, so the match is tied 1-1. Now Magnus has white, so what does he do? He goes for the Javokhir London. So d4, d5, knight c3. And Nodirbek plays, I would say, actively. You know, forcing everything off, trading a lot. Like I said, like Magnus and Nodirbek have a lot in common. If Nodirbek's not sure what to do, he will start pushing these corner pawns too, and that's what he does here. Okay, so let me put the computer on, and I think it's about equal here. I would say, actually, I was literally about to say h5, h4 probably favors the black side. So here, Magnus starts kind of trading, keeping it simple. Can't take this pawn because rook b8 is going to be just too much, I guess. What happens if I defend this? I mean, I guess your queen is getting trapped. That's the problem. Your queen is really just out there. So yeah, so generally you don't want to take the pawn. It is a bit dangerous. Okay, so they're just kind of moving, you know, grooving, trading off, doing what these guys do. Okay, so here we have a slight, alright. Maybe black can play against the c3 pawn. Maybe white can play against the b5 pawn. But really, they're just trading off. Okay, he's playing against the pawn. And then here, Nodirbek finds a nice way to force the draw. Rook takes a8, and then he has perpetual, thanks to the way the queen is geometrically attacking the king. So basically they're saying, alright, let's go down to the last game, winner takes all. Otherwise we'll go into the tiebreak. So now on to the final game. Okay guys, here we go. Quote unquote, what could be the last game. Winner takes all. Magnus versus Nodirbek. Nodirbek is white in this. So we get an e4, e5, Roy Lopez. So we're just normal stuff. d3, e5. This is all, I'm sure, theory. And we get a very just equal game. Like, if there was positions where you need a draw, you can get it. Nodirbek should be in the driver's seat here. So he starts going for c3, d4. Magnus does get to kind of take over with d5. And yeah, now he's where you start getting a little bit nervous. Black is, you know, has the A side. He's starting to push. But still, nothing crazy. Very, very drawish. Trading off everything. And now white is actually the one invading. Queen a6 would seem like the more clear move, but I think he wanted to keep pieces to keep it kind of complicated. So if he can win this c3 pawn, he has hope to win. So very dangerous. So knight d7, rook e8, trade the queens, and this is where I think it starts to turn. So here, Magnus defending, And can he take this pawn? E4 is hanging, so this. So he trades, and then so he's already up. So he's up a pawn. Okay, here. All right. So we have an equal position, and this is the crucial mistake here. F6, bishop to bishop d2. So here's the difference between bishop e3, bishop d2, and bishop e3. Bishop e3 after knight e7, rook e6. The rook moves. You can go knight g3, and you hold. Actually, maybe even try to take nh5, and you can probably draw this. Or, I mean, maybe try to win. I don't know. But if you go bishop d2, after knight e7, rook e6, rook d8, I hit the bishop with tempo. You can't go knight g3. I'll take f5, and then the torture begins. So this is what happens. So he goes here, takes, king f7, and now the Magnus bag begins. The Magnus bag begins. So same color bishops is a good transition. But 4 on 3. How do you win 4 on 3? Okay, so here, so he actually goes for the bishop endgame. I would think if you had a choice, you would want the rook and pawn endgame here. The bishop one is definitely more stressful. E3, what a move. And now he takes in g3, and h4 is going. Bishop g5, take, and it's over. Bishop g5, I guess, is just desperation. I wonder, bishop g5, was there even a move that... I guess there I can take on f6, right? But can I go bishop? So what happened if... Yeah, you basically just lose the pawn. He kind of just broke him. He broke him in a longer endgame. And I think... I don't want to get too much of the psychology here. But if he did not trade, if he had gone rook a6 and hit the weakness, I'm sure this looks a bit scary. Yeah, and it 100% feels like black is still taking over, but apparently this is the easiest way to draw, which makes it very hard. So, kind of the moral there is if you're trying to hold, do not go into that same color bishop endgame or something. Because after this, I mean, it's still a draw. What am I saying? It's still a draw. The mistake was the time pressure. The time pressure helps a lot when you're trying to press these. And having actual threats. E3, what a shot. E3 is an insane shot to win this. Bishop g7 would have been the way to attack, to hold. So yeah, if you're holding, you also got to attack the weaknesses. You got to stay aggressive and active. Otherwise, at some point, they're going to get you. And Magnus, though not really an aggressive tactician, in the endgame, you see a lot of tactics. So congrats to Magnus. Congrats on a very eye-opening performance on how to win without really having to attack. It was a marathon for sure, going through about 40 Magnus games, but definitely see the difference between me and the world champion. So hopefully you guys learned something from all these games. You can see the theme. You don't have to do that much to win in chess. It's actually not that hard. But when we make it all complicated and stuff, it gets a lot harder. Anyway, I'll see you guys later. Peace.